This is the Line 6 M13 Stomp Box Modeler. Let's talk about what's great about it, what's terrible about it, and what I think Line 6 could do to fix the problems with this pedal, reissue it, and probably sell a lot of units. So I never in my life ever considered myself a multi-effects unit kind of guy until I watched a rig rundown with Omar Rodriguez Lopez and saw him using the M9, which is a slightly smaller version of this same pedal. Honestly, I would have never given this thing a second look if it wasn't for Omar. When the other guitar player in my band, Jeff, was looking to get some effects, I had just saw that video and I said, hey, you know, get on YouTube and check out the Line 6 M9. It looks pretty cool. He ended up really liking it, but buying the M13. So my first experience with it personally was his M13. After a while of him using it, I was just like, man, that just seems so easy and so great. I think I'm gonna get myself one. And I did, and I fell in love with it. You know, it has its problems, which we'll talk about, but I fell in love with the thing. And then as I do, I got gear hungry. And I sold it, and I ended up buying the Strymon Timeline and the Strymon Mobius, which are great pedals, but the problem was my Timeline, after 2 months of sitting on a pedal board in my basement, literally never moving, stopped working. My band was recording at the time, so we weren't playing shows, but we had started to book shows, and I had to play 2 shows without being able to play any of my songs that had delay-based parts in them. As a gigging musician, when a piece of equipment does that to me, I send it away real quick. Now, I wouldn't mind trying those pedals again. They sounded great, and I give them the benefit of the doubt that I just got a bad one. But yeah, that certainly left a bad taste in my mouth. So I sold those pedals and used a portion of the money I got from that to buy a used M13, which is what you see here. First, let's talk about the bad things. Okay, number one, everybody knows this. It's everyone's complaint, and Line 6 had damn well better know it. These switches are absolute shit. They're terrible. There is nothing good about them. They're really not even a switch. They're a plastic plunger with a spring that presses down on a little tiny switch inside underneath the circuit board. And they always break. I had the tap tempo go out on my last one. And on this one, it's taking me now, I have to press the scene button like 2 or 3 times to get it to actually start functioning. They're garbage. It's ridiculous that they wouldn't just drop a little extra money and put in a good switch. You know, there are guys out there, I think it's JHV or JVH3, JHV3 or JVH3, that do mods to these, and they will replace all your switches for $150 with Carling soft touch switches. But I really don't want to drop $150 on a used M13, and you really don't want to have to add $150 to a brand new $500 M13. The switches should just work from the get-go. The other problem is the LEDs are stupid dim. Now you can change it, so don't anybody in the comments start going, you dummy, you can change that in the settings, and you can brighten the LEDs. I've already done that. They're still not bright enough. This thing on a stage in the sunlight is worthless. As you can see, I've got these letters and words laid out on the pedal board. These correspond to either a song title, multiple song titles, or a specific effect. I use an octave down on a couple songs, so I just did this arrow down, and I use a compressor on a couple songs, so I just dedicated a scene to a comp. So I have this set up as 12 different scenes per song. Each song has its own scene. I don't go into the scene like this and change the effects within. I don't do that. The scene is the song. See, right now you can see that my switch is not working, which really is ticking me off, let me tell you. Inside the M13, there are 4 folders. Each one of those 4 folders can house 12 scenes. To select the next folder, you have to be in scene mode and physically turn this knob. You know, not so bad, but when you're on stage playing, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. It would be better if they had a dedicated button, and I know that that's a much requested feature, and I think a much needed feature. Like I said, as you can see, I've already filled these up, and I'm ready to go to my next folder, except for one. Now let's talk about why I have these giant letters placed on this bright green tape, and that's because the LCD readouts, I cannot read this LED at all when I am standing up holding my guitar. I literally have to bend over to look at it. So I just went ahead and labeled my songs down here so that I could see them on the fly. These LEDs need to be increased in size so that you can display a scene title large and see which scene you are actually on. So now let's talk about what's actually great about the M13. Number one, it sounds really good. It sounds great. The other thing is, just the ability to be able to switch the scenes is wonderful. And when you're in a scene, you can run up to 4 effects at one time. With the 4 cable method, you can choose to have 1 bank or all 4 banks or 2 banks or 3 banks, whatever you want, running into the front of your amp, and you could have however many of the other banks that are left running into the effects loop of your amp. This works out great for me. So I like to run my compressor to the front of the amp because if you put a compressor in the effects loop of an amp, you can really mess things up. And if I wanted to use any of the distortions or overdrives on the M13, I could run them to the front of the amp. But the truth is, I don't think anybody uses any of the distortions or overdrives on the M13. It's not that they're terrible, they're fine for practice or goofing around, maybe recording a demo, but any stomp box pedal will absolutely crush anything in the distortion fuzz bank of this. But really that's it. That's the only thing bad about the effects on here. Number one, you have a ton of effects. I believe there's 105 different effects in this unit. And like I said, they all sound really great, and quite a lot of them are very usable. Another thing I like about it is, besides the switches, a well-built unit. These little bars here, as you can see, have kept me from kicking my knobs off. I was really surprised at that, to be honest with you. I'm surprised all my knobs are alive. I figured I would have murdered some of them by now. These are different than what comes on here. These were replaced before I bought the unit. From what I understand, the looper on this unit is pretty good too. I really don't mess with the looper. I do play around with it occasionally, but as you can see, I've pretty much covered up the names of the looper controls. Another thing I don't like about the M13 is that if you want to use an expression pedal as a wah pedal, you have to click to activate the wah and then use the expression pedal. I can't do that. Too many steps. But yeah, so that makes the wah function, to me, absolutely useless. It's fine for volume control or for changing any of the parameters on the effects. There's 2 expression pedal inputs. That's great. Yeah, so to summarize, this is really a cool pedal board. I like it a lot. It really does a lot of great things. It does what I need it to do. And if Line 6 could just fix the issues with it, they could probably do a new release of this pedal and sell a ton of them, because there still really isn't anything else on the market in that price point that could possibly compete with the M13. Now I know a lot of you will be like, oh, what about the Roland blah 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 and the blah 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 blah, or the Fractal blah 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 blah. They're just not as user friendly. I mean, the Boss stuff is pretty cool, but the way that they look, the thing I like about this is it kind of just looks like a MIDI controller. It doesn't look like a big, giant, goofy looking multi-effects unit. Anyways, guys, that's all I have to say about the M13. It's a cool pedal. You can find them used for $250 to $300, and that's an absolute steal. Just check the switches before you buy it, because you're going to end up with a scene button that doesn't want to work for you like mine, or 9 times out of 10 it's going to be the tap tempo. That's it, guys. Take it easy.